Well, hi there, wherever you happen to be. This is Mike Hinkson, and I am hosting once again Unstoppable Mindset, where inclusion, diversity, and the unexpected meet. Today, we get to speak with Kyle Campbell, and what an amazing story for a lot of reasons. You know, one of the things that I've said many times during our podcast episodes is that one of the main goals I have is for everyone who listens to this to see that they can be more unstoppable than they think they can. And, you know, it's not always about making some sort of a specific concerted effort to be unstoppable, but it's more an issue of just choosing how you live your life and choosing not to let things hold you back. Kyle was diagnosed with an inoperable brainstem tumor at the age of 5. He was even described in his records as failing to thrive. But today, now at some 35 or 36 years old, he works at a community college. He's been a preacher. He has been a guest speaker at a variety of places. He is writing a book, and he is by any definition thriving. But for the purposes of our podcast, we're just going to say that Kyle is unstoppable. So Kyle, welcome to Unstoppable Mindset.
Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. I've never been described as unstoppable, so thank you. That made me smile. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm happy to be able to chat with you a bit.
Well, maybe they'll put that in your medical records. Now you're unstoppable.
Sounds good to me.
Well, tell us a little bit about your life story growing up and how it was discovered that you had an inoperable brain tumor, why that happened. If you're willing to talk a little bit about your early life history, let's hear it.
Of course, yeah, I would love to share. So when I was a little boy, about 4 or so, I had just kind of some strange things that were not typical. My voice had a hyponasality, and it wouldn't really mature. And lots of young boys have a high voice, which is normal at that age. But my voice seemed a little extra nasally and not to be changing. So my mom was keeping an eye on that and curious about that. And there were a few other symptoms as well. But it was a lot of the speech. So my mom took me to a doctor, and the doctor said, well, he's just, taking more time to mature and give him time to grow, and see what happens. And my mom wasn't convinced about that. She thought, well, I think there might be something else going on. So she took me to a different doctor who did an assessment with me, and he kind of saw a few more things, and he told my mom, maybe Kyle should get an MRI when they take pictures of the inside of your body, just to make sure everything is okay with his brain and development. And then, yeah, they found a brainstem. They found a tumor on my brainstem. And so the average adult brainstem is kind of a little bit bigger than the size of your thumb. Maybe 8 centimeters long. And, I was a kid, so I'm sure mine was smaller than that. And, you think about your brain connects to your spine via the brainstem. And so a whole bunch of, nerves go through that brainstem and connect through your spine to your body. And basic life functions are controlled in the brainstem. Things like breathing, swallowing, walking, talking, seeing. even more nuanced things like you know, I think blood pressure and heart rate and things like that. So there's a lot going on in there, and I had a brain tumor, a little marble type thing in mine, um, and there was a question of, okay, do we go in there and biopsy it and try and poke around and get it out? And the neurosurgeon that I went to said, about 5 years ago, we would have operated on this. But now the current trend is to play it safe, because if we go in there and operate, we might touch things and move things that would not be good. We might cause more damage than than we want. So we just kind of watched the tumor, and I had MRIs every month, every few months, to see what was happening. And if it was quickly and aggressively growing, we would have had to do something right away. Um, Amazingly, mine was not doing that. It was growing a little bit, but it was slower. It was benign, is what they would say, or that it was acting like a benign tumor. I can't say for sure what it is because we haven't biopsied it yet. Um, but it's there, and it caused a whole bunch of symptoms when I was a kid. Um, I would constantly be sick, nauseous, maybe dizzy, fatigued, um, throwing up. I would have coughing fits. I remember, Michael, going to bed at night when I was a little kid, thinking, I wonder how sick I'm going to be in the morning tomorrow. And, not a fun thought to have when you're a kid. Um, but, but yeah, that's kind of what it was like as a little kid. And, yeah, I just have so much to say about it that it's coming to mind. I wasn't ever afraid of it. My parents took me to doctors, and we trusted all the doctors with whatever they recommended that would, made sense. Um, so we trusted in those people to provide care, and they did. And I'm here today still. I had
Well,
radiation.
there you go.
Yeah, I'm here.
Let me ask you this. So you talked about your voice being nasally, and clearly your voice
Yeah.
does sound a little bit different than the voices of a lot of people. Why is that? Is that because of the tumor today?
Yeah. So
Okay.
essentially, what the tumor does, it very slightly paralyzes my left side. So in my facial muscles, you might see it. My eye and my lip are a little bit droopy, not too much. But on the inside, where the throat connects to the mouth, there is the larynx. And then above that, where the mouth connects through the air passage to the nose, the nasal cavity is the pharynx. And the way that they're designed is to close when we're not talking, and then to open when we talk.
Right.
So they're open when we talk so we can project our voice, and then they close when we're not talking. So we have, oh man, I think I got it backward. They're open when we're not talking, so we can breathe through our nose.
Right.
And they
close when you're talking.
Yeah, so we have the breath to project and talk and speak out, and one of my sides, my left side, it didn't move, and either the larynx or the pharynx. So I constantly had an open passageway from my throat through my nose. So when I would speak, I would get air coming out my nose that
Got it.
we couldn't stop.
Got it.
And I spent years in speech therapy, in school, and pretty much the only thing we could do is have me speak louder, try to hope that would help. Um, what
Yeah.
what what made the difference? Um, I remember I was 17 and I was referred to a specialized ENT, ear, nose,
Hmm.
throat doctor, someone who specialized in like facial plastics and reconstructive surgery. And he lifted up, he put a device in the back of my throat and lifted up and had me say, ah, and my voice changed from nasally sound that I'm used to to what it should sound like when that
Hmm.
passageway is closed. And I thought, wow, I want to have that voice. That's me, that's my voice. And so I had surgery when I was 18, to help close that pipe, I guess, in my throat. And so my voice is a lot more intelligible now. Um, but yeah, so it's
Well,
still an issue, but much better
um,
than it used to be.
but clearly you're very understandable and so on. So when did they start doing radiation?
So, the doctors recommended that we wait until after puberty for me. So
Okay.
if I had had it radiation before puberty with hormone distribution, that might have been thrown off, and I might have had some other issues coming on. Um, so we waited until after puberty. For me, I got to be about 14, so it's about 2001. Um, and the tumor was slightly growing, and the doctor, my neurosurgeon said, okay, it's gotten big enough. We need to do something. Hormones have mostly gone, kicked in. Um, so yeah, that's when I had it.
So, um, what did the radiation end up doing for you?
So the way that I like to think of it, as a kid, is that they were shooting lasers through my head, and
Mhm.
basically they were
Yeah.
targeting that tumor to damage it. Um, and it shrunk the tumor by about half, um, which is huge. And so the majority of my symptoms went away. I was no longer nauseous daily. I was no longer dizzy. I didn't have any more altitude sickness. I was able to gain weight and gain muscle mass, which were a struggle for me when I was younger to build. Um, and my my coordination and my balance are still about the same. They're still not in the best shape, but a lot of my daily symptoms of just not feeling good, they went away. Um, and I don't have to think about them so much anymore, which is nice.
So, what was it like as a kid, and interacting with other kids and so on, and going
Yeah,
to school and all that, as you
yeah.
were growing up through high school with all of this going on and then the radiation in the middle and so on?
You know, in elementary school, I mentioned at the height of my sickness, I'd be, I remember a few times I threw up in class in the trash
Mhm.
can, because I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
Or I remember having to leave, step outside of class because I had an uncontrollable coughing fit, and I didn't want to interrupt the class too much. I didn't want all my friends staring at me like, is he okay? Um, and I was weak. I was physically a very small kid. They called me Skinny Bones because I had trouble building muscle. Because my rapid heart rate and this, all the whole thing. Um, and oh yeah. So my mom was worried about me in the fifth or sixth grade. She thought he's a very small kid. Maybe he's being bullied or something. So my mom asked the yard duty person, is Kyle okay? Like, is he being bullied by anyone? And the yard duty person for my mom, he's actually friends with the bullies. Um, and I didn't realize it, but I was just being kind to everyone. And I thought these kids were cool, and I was kind to them, so I was one of them, even though I wasn't really picked on kids, and they weren't either. They were just extra rambunctious, which, of course, I am not. Um, but and
But you got along, obviously, and they didn't
yeah,
bully you, I gather.
yeah, and I was just being kind and calling out their value. I guess I didn't have those words to say. Um, but yeah, radiation in junior high and in high school, most of my symptoms were gone at this point, except for my balance and my speech.
Hmm.
Um, but we practiced those, and you do the best you can, make the most of what you have, and you're grateful to be here every day, and that attitude um has stuck with me, stuck with my family, and it makes a big difference in our everyday interactions.
Well, and I would just say that's as good a definition of unstoppable as one could find. You didn't let any of that get in your way. Did you get bullied in high school at all?
No. Mm-mm.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Because you related to people, and you clearly had a demonstrable way about you that people didn't bully you. They accepted you. And, I think a lot of times that's the best thing that we can do is to try to avoid any of the kinds of things by relating to people. And you certainly did that.
Certainly, yeah. Relating to people is huge. Being kind. Um, here at I work in a community college nowadays, and I teach a class that I had the opportunity to kind of create. Um, and it's all about connection
Mm-hmm.
and the value of knowing how to invite people in to connection and how to maintain that connection. Um, Not how to win arguments, because winning um doesn't build connection, um, but how to connect together and grow together on a journey of mutual value as people.
Well, you you certainly have set a good, strong example, which is as good as it could be. And I'm assuming that all went on through college, and you did pretty well, and you did thrive.
I did. I got my um bachelor's degree in philosophy, went to Campbell, um, St. Louis Obispo, and got my master's degree in Rehabilitation Counseling from Fresno State. Um, and it's been great. And so I have the privilege to work in a college, and it's really exciting to me to come and work in a place where every day people come to learn something new, to build something, to improve themselves, their understanding of the world around us and how they fit into that world and how we can relate with each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell me, you in your life journey, you started with definitely the whole issue of dealing with perseverance.
Yeah.
And you've developed a good life philosophy. How have you progressed, or how did you progress from philosophy to faith to being involved in rehabilitation and rehabilitation counseling? And how do those all interconnect?
They absolutely interconnect, even though it seems like they might not at all. So I grew up in church and having faith as a Christian as a kid in our family. And when I moved to college, I had 1 week of studying philosophy of Plato's Allegory of the Cave in high school, and I thought, hey, that's really fun. I'm going to be a philosophy major. And I went to Cal Poly and I studied philosophy. And I'm embarrassed to admit, in my philosophy years in college, I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew better than other people. I was really into analysis and logic and rationality, I guess. You know, if something made sense, I would go for it. If it didn't make sense, it was a waste of my time. And things like emotion didn't make sense. I couldn't think about it logically, so I threw it out the window. And at certain aspects of faith, I can improve so I wouldn't deal with them. I will say I remained a Christian the whole time. I believed in God because philosophically, God makes sense to me. It as in a logical fashion. Um, I know the arguments against God's existence, and after going over them, none of them amounted to much in my perspective. Um, and as I continued in philosophy, I got really into what does it mean to know something, and how do we have knowledge? What does it mean to know something? And I kind of realized that I knew a heck of a lot less than I thought I knew. To have knowledge meant I'm absolutely certain about something, that it logically and rationally makes sense. And not a whole lot of things meet that criteria. Um, at least after they go through my interpretation, my intuition. So I said, "Oh man, I believe all these things I thought I knew. Hey, what about that faith thing I used to know? Well, if I believe things I cannot prove, maybe I could believe these certain aspects of faith that I was holding back on because I couldn't prove them." Um, so I started going to church to learn more about it, and it was just an amazing way to connect with people and build those relationships and have that shared identity in Jesus Christ and not in ourselves. Um, so I started in building empathy um, for people in the community. And so I ended up going, I had a job that wasn't going anywhere. So I went to Fresno State to get my master's in rehab counseling. Michael, when I went to Fresno State, I kid you not, I didn't even know what rehabilitation counseling was. I just thought I need to do something different. They let me into their program, and I applied, and they agreed to pay my tuition, um, and to pay me on top of that to go and do it. So why not? Um, so I went to study counseling and learning how to connect with people. And I remember, I came from philosophy. I had this very analytical mind, because that's what I was used to. And I remember counseling someone, I was the counselor and they were the counselee. Um, and they were talking about how they had this really traumatic thing going on and it was really tough. And so I thought, oh, okay, I know what that's like because I've had that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to connect with you by saying, oh, yeah, I understand. Me too. I've had that too. So as as this person was talking in the midst of her grief, about this loss that she had, I was smiling and nodding, preparing to say, I understand. I've had this happen in my life. And I remember she looked at me with, daggers in her eyes. She gave me the dagger. She looked at me and she said, stop effing smiling at me. And it just kind of stopped me. And I was like, whoa, what? Like, that's intense. And I realized, even though I've had my own grief and I've had my own experiences of challenge, um, I cannot say I have had the same experience as someone else. Um, we all have different things that we've all gone through. Um, and me wanting to avoid the displeasure with her uncomfortableness with her grief. Well, that was not okay to push it aside,
Mm-hmm.
but I needed to connect with her and allow her to take the reins and experience what she's experiencing, um, to be the expert of her own experience. And that, kind of reinforced in me to think that life is not about me. Life is not about what I think about things. Life is about other people and letting them build and grow and do what they need to do. And it is not my place to impose my value and my judgment on people. It's my place to encourage them to do what they need to do.
Were you able to connect with her?
I was. Yeah, I was.
It is all about learning how to truly be empathetic as opposed to just saying you know it all, which is of course what you said earlier. And it makes perfect sense. It's so easy for us to just say, yeah, we know, I've been there, done that, but that doesn't really matter. What really
No.
matters is if you can show that you understand that she's been there and she's doing that and she needs your support, not just your, I don't want to say arrogance, but your idea of what she's going through. So that makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
Well, I'll talk about my book, my upcoming book here in a moment. But one of the lines I say in my book is, people don't need your sass. They need your support.
Mm-hmm.
And when we make it about us, when we say, oh, I've been through that, or, oh, this is what I think about your situation right now. When we invite ourselves to give those uninvited, pieces of advice, we're kind of taking over, we're not allowing someone to experience what they need to experience. I believe that we need to get over ourselves and we need to learn how to hold back on that thought of, oh, I know how to solve your problem. I know what you need to hear. And we need to just put ourselves on pause for just a minute to let someone share and talk about what they're experiencing. Um, certainly, there's a time and place for us to offer advice and talk about what we've been through, just like I am right now. Um, but we need to be mindful of the timing and the circumstance in which we offer that advice.
So, how does faith enter into your work as a rehabilitation counselor?
So, um, I have the certified rehabilitation counselor credential, but that's not my position. At the college, I work as a student services support coordinator, helping people navigate the college and different assignments, different situations based on their barriers brought about by disability, aspects of disability. Um, and it absolutely has so much to do with my position. I love what I do because I have the chance to interact with so many different people, students about different things. And what I bring with me from the counseling and from my faith is that, oh, it's not about me. I'm not here to impose myself onto anyone, but I'm here to be open for when someone comes to me with an issue,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's whatever issue it is. Um, and it's easy to be quick to solve a problem, because we recognize the problem and we say, oh, I know what to do. So if I have a student come in and say, I am having trouble with this homework assignment. I don't know how. I don't know what my teacher wants me to do. It's so easy for me to jump in and say, oh, it's easy. All you have to do is this and that, because I get it. But that approach is not what someone needs to hear. They need my support, not my perspective on how I would do it. Maybe they do, but not yet. So every single person we interact with, every single person that we see, they're carrying a story with them. They're carrying a perspective and a background and loads of experience with them. Um, and it's all these things that make us who we are as individual people. And so when someone comes to me for help on how to do anything, my position is to be curious about who they are, and how the day's going, to build that rapport, um, and also how can we solve together what you're doing, what are you experiencing, um, so to allow someone the chance to have the autonomy of their own situation, but also to offer my perspective. Um, there's and my my faith certainly has a lot to do with that. I don't know if anyone listening is going to remember. I don't know if you remember, Michael. There was a singer in the 70s named Keith Green. Um, and he played piano and he sang. He was a awesome guy, Keith Green. And one of his songs, it's called "Make My Life a Prayer to You." And one of his lines in that song is, "It was so hard to see when my eyes were on me." And I think as people, it's easy to put our eyes on ourselves, to think about ourselves as the hero of the story, because we have that perspective kind of built into us. But when our eyes are on us, when we always think about it ourselves, it's hard to see other people. It's hard to see
Yeah.
the situation.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've always felt it is that life's an adventure. It's an event, but it's not just an adventure for me. It's an adventure for you. It's an adventure for everyone.
Yeah.
And we are all traveling on the same multi-lane road of life, but we're all having our own different adventures. And it would be arrogant of me to presume that I know all that there is to know about you and your life. You come from having different experiences, but my gosh, together and learning from each other, we both can grow, which is really as good as it gets.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's unstoppable.
Oh, there you go. Well, let me ask you this, so clearly people would say you have a disability because of the inoperable brainstem and all the physical things that it's done. Although the disability is I think probably as much in other people's minds as it is in our own. But talk about a little bit, just the whole concept of disability. How do we view it? How should we view it? I know there are a lot of different models of disabilities and so on. How would you go about really describing what disability should mean?
That's a great question with thousands of different answers. And so for me as a kid, certainly growing up with disability or disabilities, I never knew I had disability. I didn't identify with it, and it just wasn't talked about. It wasn't avoided, but I do not remember the word around my life in in the 90s and 2000s. And even when I went to college, I knew about the Disability Resource Center that we had. But I didn't identify at all as disabled or with a disability. Because I thought, oh, I function, so that's not me. That was my understanding. And it was when I went to Fresno State to study rehabilitation counseling, where, for those of you who do not know, rehabilitation counseling is counseling with a focus on people with disabilities, on how to work with people and what they might experience with their disability and so on and so forth. And it was in that program that I learned what a disability actually was. A life and an impairment that can affect us in different ways. And it was then that I realized, wait a minute, I have one of these. I count as having a disability. I have, daily impairments in my activities of daily life, walking and talking and, things like that. That I still experience every day. And so, when I went to school, we learned about different models, so the medical model of understanding disability is that disability is a result of something wrong within the individual, of something that needs to be cured by a doctor so that you can be healed and be better and come back into society as non-disabled anymore. So that's the medical model of disabilities. It's the individual who is disabled, and the social model of disability is that no, it's not the individual, it's society that disables the individual based on how society is built and set up. Um, and the program I went to was all about the social model of disability, advocating people as persons first, which I got really behind, and it made sense to say, yeah, we don't talk about disabled people, but people, it's person with a disability. You're putting the person first, and the idea is that, well, you're valuing the person before mentioning the disability. So you're valuing the human before the condition. So I came out of my program, all amped about person first language. And I remember I just told one of my colleagues at work about person first language, how we shouldn't say disabled person, we should say person with a disability, because we don't want to disable someone. We want to build them up, and still acknowledge the condition, but value the person.
Yeah.
And so I felt good about myself seeing all this. And I remember next, a student walked in as I was in my back office. He said, "Hi, I'm a disabled student and I need such and such,
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wanted to go out there and say, no, you're not a disabled person. You're a person with a disability. And of course, I wouldn't do that because I can't project values onto someone. But it made me think, wait a minute, if I'm wrong about um, if this student is identifying as disabled first, maybe, I got curious about that. And I found a model of disability called the identity model of disability. And that's where we identify and embrace our disability or condition that causes impairments, and we embrace it and embrace the culture of not being able to do something as making us a part of who we are. Um, so, I used to think the medical model is bad, social model is good. And, it brings to mind my favorite Star Wars movie, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And there's a part at the end of the movie where Anakin Skywalker is doing bad things and he's about to become Darth Vader. And he says to Obi-Wan Kenobi, "You're either for me or you're against me. One or the other." And Obi-Wan, being the master Jedi, of course, that he is, says, only a Sith deals in absolutes, which is an absolute statement, which is kind of funny. But the point is that it doesn't need to be this or that.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be medical or social. And I've seen it with my life. Part of it truly is medical. I had less function, and I had medical procedures, radiation, and surgery, and they really improved my function. And I'm grateful for that. So there is validity to the medical model, and certainly there's validity to the social model. I do a lot of LinkedIn learning classes, and I did one by a Paralympian. Her name is Liz Johnson, and she was saying that people have disabilities, people have these conditions that they live with, but it's society that disables us. So if I had to walk a tightrope to my car, well, there's no way I'm going to do that. But if it's the only way I could do it, then I'm disabled because I'm not able to do that.
Or you figure out a way to do it. But I think that one of the big issues that we all really need to think a lot more about, and I've started thinking about it, and I've been using it lately in some speeches that I've given, is that words matter. So, for example,
absolutely,
persons with disabilities does not mean we don't have ability. And we've got to and have the right to and should change what disability means. It doesn't mean a lack of ability at all. Yes, it is a way that as people like to do, we get classified. But as I point out, and I've done it a number of times, I don't think there is one person on this planet who doesn't have a disability.
Yeah.
Most people are light dependent and they don't get along well without lights. I just yesterday evening, we had a situation where someone was here helping my wife with some things, and it was Halloween. And one of the things we weren't doing was giving away candy. That tells you that this is being recorded on November 1st. But we turned the lights off so that people wouldn't continuously ring the doorbell because we're not doing trick or treating. But this person couldn't get around in the house, and that's typical. So we dealt with it. But the bottom line is that the light bulb was invented to give people a way to be able to function in the dark. It doesn't change the fact that they have a disability compared to some of us. Now, I realize there are a whole lot more light dependent people than light independent people. And all that really should say is that we need to be a little bit more open and understanding about people's differences. And that's part of what we don't tend to see a lot, nearly as much as we should. And, you use some terms like impairment. And there are problems with that. Are you impaired? Well, it depends on how you want to look at it. Are you mobility impaired? Well, let's talk about when you mention the tightrope. How many people could get on a tightrope and walk it to their car today? Right? You're not alone in that. Not many is absolutely right. Now, can more people learn to do it? Possibly. But the bottom line is they can't today. And so we've got to drop the concept, it seems to me, of impaired. People who happen to have diminished eyesight are called either blind, if they're totally blind, or visually impaired. And first of all, I think that that's a serious problem. The so-called professionals in the world have dealt with that. They've created those things to make a schism and a difference of classifications between someone who has no eyesight and someone who has some eyesight but doesn't have full eyesight. But the problem with visually impaired is, first of all, visually we're not different simply because we're blind or because we have a lack of some eyesight. And so visually is not something that should be used. So you could change that to vision. But impaired, again, means you're still equating it to full eyesight. And it's like with people who happen to be deaf. They'll shoot you if you say deaf or hearing impaired. And you probably know this as well as anyone, right? Why? Why is it that people who have some hearing loss don't want to be called hearing impaired? Do you know?
Well, I think it goes back to identity and how we see ourselves, how we think about ourselves. And like you mentioned, Michael, people have a tendency to want to categorize others. And that's kind of how, people do things sometimes. And people have such a wide variety of experiences and abilities and characteristics and things that have to do with them, where we can't really easily put someone into a category. We can't really lump someone based on our own perception of them. And Yeah, it makes me think about what you were saying about language, um, and kind of how words change meaning, and even though we might say the same word, Michael, we might have different meanings to that word. Um,
But
I
we
quote,
can change definitions. And we don't tend to do that in the area of disabilities as much because people really still consider us impaired or not having as much ability. And the answer with deaf people and heart and not using hearing impaired is they certainly culturally do not want to be viewed as impaired. And there's no reason they should be. So you shouldn't have that equation that says that you're hearing impaired and I'm not, so I'm better than you. And that is one of the reasons that the general preference is deaf or hard of hearing. You're taking away the whole concept of impaired. And so, like with blindness, it shouldn't be visually impaired or vision impaired. It should be blind or low vision. Take away the equation, the equating part, take away the comparison.
mm-hmm.
And there's no reason that we ought to not do that in our world today. People are afraid of disabilities because, it could happen to us. We've seen it. We see things happen. Well, yeah, but there are a lot of things that can happen to a lot of people. And somewhere along the line, we have to make the determination as a society that disability is a way that we classify people because they're somewhat different from us. So does that mean a left-handed person is a person with a disability because they aren't like most people? By the definitions, it should be. So, we don't deal with that very well, but we've got to get away from feeling that disability means lack of ability. And we shouldn't dance around it. It's plain disability. Fine. I'm a person with a disability. And so is Barack Obama. And so is Joe Biden. And so are you. And so is everyone else. Because everyone has challenges and everyone has differences.
Everyone has challenges. And disability, we're all going to have a disability at some point. As we age, as our life changes, we experience these different things and we meet the criteria, the definition given for disability. But it's how we identify, and you mentioned value. It's how we value each other that really makes the difference, I think. That, I feel like our culture, the message that was sent is that we value abilities to do different things. And which is hard for someone who has had a difficult time doing things, like me, like you, and like people. But we need to educate that a person's various aspects to their identity does not impact their value as a person. Their value is you can't take it away. You can't add to it. You can't change it. A person is valuable in and of themselves, and that's something special, I think.
We need to recognize that everyone has gifts and everyone has challenges. It doesn't matter who we really are. So what college do you work at now?
I work for a community college here in Visalia in the Central Valley.
Right. And what's your favorite part of the job?
Working with students who are curious. I mentioned curiosity, and I'm curious to get to know people, and students are curious about their different subjects, their different classes in school. Um, and you never know who you're going to meet. There's people with all kinds of different backgrounds and just so many potential connections. But I really value the growth mindset that is on the college campus or in a school setting of we're here to learn and we're here to do um, unstoppable things. So that's my favorite part, that environment.
You're clearly a very resilient person by any definition. So where do you find hope, and what would you advise others of us in terms of how to find more hope and bring it into our lives?
Thank you, Michael. Resilient is one of my absolute favorite words. My other word is appreciate. And both resilient and appreciate are long words. They have four syllables. They're, someone like me, we don't just say them on accident. We have to be intentional to say them. One of my other favorite ones. But to be resilient is to be flexible, to have hope that no matter what happens, it's going to be okay. You're going to find a way through. But maybe you might need to adjust your path a teensy bit. But resilient is being able to say, oh, it's not working out the way I planned. But that's okay, because whatever happens, it's going to have value. So for me, with my Christian faith, I know that my hope is with Jesus, and my hope is with God, that no matter what happens, He's gonna work it out for my benefit. That's something He says that He's lets us know. For those of us in the faith, and there are absolutely times I don't understand what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and if I try to understand what's going on, I'm gonna drive myself crazy. Um, and I'm gonna put myself under stress, and it's gonna be really hard. Um, and the letting go of control, the letting go process has been amazing for my resilience, because I'm letting go. I'm no longer personally connected to a specific outcome of something. Instead, I'm committed to the process, and I'm committed to my response of a situation. And I can't control so many things. None of us can. But I can influence my own response to
Right.
something.
And the interesting thing about religion, we all have the same God, whether it's Christian, whether it's Jewish, whether it's Muslim. And the Bible tells us that we all have the same God. And the teachings, the basic tenets of teachings are the same. And it would just be so much better if people would learn more about God and really reflect on the fact that we're all part of the same world.
I think there is a tendency to want to point out things that we are lacking in each other. I think there is a feeling of wanting to be superior and to say my beliefs are better than yours, or my belief is true and yours is not, or my experience is more valid than yours. And I absolutely believe there's an absolute truth right there. But it's a big one.
It is a big one.
It is not our place to judge and say whose perspective is better. It's like, like the there's a story of the blind monks feeling something. There's 5 of them in the story, and they feel these different things of something. And one says, "Oh no, it's very thin," and one says, "No, it's very strong and dense," and one says, "No, it's very long and kind of waves around." And they're all describing different parts of the elephant.
Of the elephant, right?
Yeah, it's the same elephant, and they all have a different perspective of it. So for one of them to say, you're wrong for thinking it's like this when it's like this, and I'm right."
Yeah.
I think that's a misstep on our part.
And the interesting thing is that so many people judge, and so many people once again decide that they know best. It goes back to what you said near the beginning of our time, which is that in reality, you can't make the determination for other people. And you know what? Even if one religion is absolutely correct and all the other religions are incorrect, it seems to me that if we follow the preachings of Christianity, it goes back to what you just said about judging. It is not our place to judge. That's between God and every individual. And far be it from me to decide what God's choice is going to be.
Absolutely, Michael. Even though I think I know better, far be it from me to say what is right. And far be it from me to judge the situation.
If you compare most of the major religions, the basic teachings and the basic goals are really the same. And so again, far be it from us to say who's right and who's wrong, or what's right and what's not. And that includes people saying, well, Jesus wasn't the Son of God. If you follow the teachings of Jesus, we're all children of God. And Jesus makes that very clear. But the issue still is, we all have to stop judging. And it goes back to disabilities the same way. So it is a challenge. And, I really applaud the adventure that you're on. And I have to ask, we're going to have to end at some point here, but tell me about the book that you're writing.
Yeah, I think I could chat with you all night, Michael. I
told you we could do that.
Well, I don't know if your viewers would appreciate that. So yeah, I have a book coming out. It's called Beyond Belief: How a Brainstem Tumor Brought Faith and Purpose to Life. And in my book, Beyond Belief, I talk about all these things that we've talked about today, Michael. My journey as a kid growing up and having the medical issues. I talk a little bit about disability and my journey through counseling, through philosophy, and kind of weave it in with the Bible and seeing myself in the Bible. It was the philosopher and theologian Soren Kierkegaard who said, you need to see yourself in the Bible and have the Bible be talking to you and about you. And so I give my journey of what that was for me. But it's a book, and I end with practical strategies for someone for living beyond belief, or maybe, as you might say, unstoppable living. Things like calling out the value in others, things like being patient for the sake of others, things like being kind to each other. And it's so easy to skip these things as afterthoughts of what we should be doing, when in reality they're essential to what we should be doing every day. And it's been a fun process to write the book, and I'm excited to share my message, Beyond Belief, how a brainstem tumor brought faith and purpose to life. It's going to be available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle edition.
When will it be coming out?
The official launch day is Thursday, November 3rd, which is this Thursday. The Kindle edition will be 99 cents that day. So if you want to donate $1 and help me become a best-selling author and help and learn about living with a brainstem tumor, you can do that. I didn't realize for a long time how unique it is to live with a brainstem tumor. We hear about brain tumors every now and then. We don't hear much about brainstem tumors.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized recently how special that is, it was kind of like I had the conviction that, wow, I need to share this story. So I'm happy to have the opportunity to do that.
Are you self-publishing it, or do you have a publisher?
I have a hybrid publisher, so I'm self-publishing, but I have an independent press who has helped me along the way.
Great.
Yeah, they're called Ignite Press. They're based out of Fresno here.
Well, I hope that you'll also figure out a way to make it an audiobook, or get Audible to produce it and put it up on its site and make it available in as many different forms as you can.
Of course. Thank you. Yeah. In fact, just today, I was talking with my independent press, my publisher, about how do I do an audiobook and kind of getting that started. So I would love to have that. People have asked for it. And yeah, hopefully it's coming down the pike.
Cool. Well, Kyle, I want to thank you for being here with us today. It's been a real joy and a real pleasure, and I think I've learned a lot. And it's been a wonderful conversation. How can people reach out to you if they want to contact you or learn more about you and so on?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. People can find me online. My website is www.kylebeyondbelief.com. My email is on there, kyle.beyondbelief@gmail.com. But if you head to my website, you'll be able to fill out a form and contact me on there. One more time, www.kylebeyondbelief.com.
Well, Kyle, thank you very much again for being with us. And I want to thank you for listening out there today. We really appreciate it. Hope that you found this informative and enjoyable and inspirational. If you have a chance, please give us a 5-star rating wherever you're listening to our podcast. And I would love to know what you think. So please feel free to email me at michaelhi@accessibe.com, or go to our podcast page, www.michaelhingson.com/podcast. So we really do value your thoughts, your comments, And Kyle, for you and for all of you listening out there, if you know of anyone else who you think we ought to have as a guest on the podcast, Unstoppable Mindset, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to find ways to accommodate any guests that you bring our way. So once more, Kyle, thanks very much. It's been wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you, Michael. It's been great. I appreciate the opportunity.